Shut your racist mouth. Hey, black Americans, you think you should have voter ID? What are you, racist? Well, I need ID.
Yeah, but
I love Crowder, man. I love Crowder. I can't. He can't help it. He cannot help it. I love him.
You should have voter ID? What are you, racist? Well, I need ID.
yeah, but guess what?
The fact that he didn't go massa is honestly like a credit to his restraint. You know, in his head, he had jokes about Hennessy. He had jokes about like Nikes. He was ready to go on like a 40-second like tirade in response to that one, and he just kept it to that. And honestly, I think that's good. Actually, what do people not like about voter ID? So first of all, voter fraud is not an issue in the United States. We've done many studies on voter fraud, and it literally is just a non-problem. It's just not a thing that happens in any significant sense. It's not only insignificant, it's like it's not even marginal. I'm trying to think of a word that's above nothing but below every descriptor for something that's minimal. It's anti-significant. It's nothing, you know. It just doesn't really happen. Keep in mind the 2020 presidential election was like the most scrutinized election in all of American history by a huge factor. And yeah, there were like 3 cases of individual voter fraud done, like whatever. Like there were a few, because there were always a few in a country of hundreds of millions, and like they were mostly Republicans. So okay, and a lot of it is just people being dumb, like they just misfile because they're stupid. You know, it's not the idea of it being like a political thing. Yeah. But anyway, the problem with voter ID. So first of all, it's not needed at all. But also, the United States does not have a universal ID. The government does not guarantee you for free an ID, which means that there are going to be people who don't have an ID. Most people have an ID. The vast majority of people have an ID, but some people don't. A small number, but small extrapolated to a country of hundreds of millions are, you know, that's a lot of people. And generally speaking, the people least likely to have IDs are racial minorities and poor people, who tend to be racial minorities. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people here who would be inconvenienced. Keep in mind, oftentimes getting an ID of any sort requires time or money. Oftentimes people who are really poor or underinformed or undereducated, they don't know about a new ID law, so they'll show up to vote, not have an ID, and then their vote won't get counted because they won't be able to enter or apply one. You'll have issues where people get taken off. This is a real thing, by the way. Hundreds of thousands of Black Americans taken off voter registries without their knowledge before the election, so then their votes just don't count. You know, state ID laws changing, stuff that can be easily and quickly amended if you have time and money, but less so if you don't. Like, guys, if voter ID was required for voting, this would affect me zero. Even if it weren't for the fact that I already have voter ID, and I do, I would just be like, oh, I'll just drive out and get one. No distance would be a problem to me. No cost would be a problem to me. Even if it was just $50. But $50 is like a week worth of groceries for one person. For a poor person, that could potentially be enough to deter them. Maybe they could afford it if they saved up, but think about it. If you're really, really poor and you live in a shit area and you don't have a driver's license or whatever else, and it's like $30 to get the ID that you would need to vote, or you can get enough food to make it through the week, what do you think you're going to choose? Why isn't it free? Because it's America. In a country where voter fraud is not a problem, the necessity of a voter ID is an unnecessary, classist, and racist policy. It doesn't solve anything. The reason Republicans push for it is because they know it would disproportionately discriminate against people, which brings to mind the North Carolina shenanigans that got overturned recently, thanks, where the state Republicans crafted a voter ID law after specifically requesting what types of voter ID were most used by Black people, and then requiring voter IDs that weren't those ones, deliberately trying to essentially like cut off like statistically portions of the population that they knew would vote mostly for Dems. And then the state court, I think, or the Supreme Court said that it was targeted against Black people with surgical precision, but then another court overturned that ruling, so maybe they've already put that back in place. I don't even know. The point is, the voter ID thing is just another way of implementing a voter control. It's just not necessary. It's just not. Just taint.